Now, I think most of you will know that my Porsche 911 Carrera T is currently on a ship on its way to Australia for the start of Drive the World. I had like 4 days between collecting that car and handing it over to the guys at Cars Europe so they could load it onto a boat and send it across the oceans. That meant I had hardly any time to drive the thing, let alone film with it. And Porsche UK realised this, so they got in touch and said, would I like to borrow their 911 Carrera T so I could familiarise myself with the car a little more and film some videos whilst mine is on a boat. So, welcome to the Porsche UK 911 Carrera T. Now, this particular car is quite different to my car. However, the fundamentals and some of the spec remains the same. And so many of you have asked so many questions as to why I chose the 911 Carrera T, but more specifically why I chose my 911 Carrera T, that I thought in the first of quite a few videos to come with this car, I would try and answer as many of those questions as possible.
Driving for so long now that I forgot what I was leaving. I couldn't even tell you what road I was on or if I was only dreaming.
Right, let's kick things off by explaining exactly what the Carrera T is, because I think there is still some confusion over this model. When it first came out, people were like, oh, is it a bargain GT3 Touring? But I don't think it is. This is a back to basics 911 Carrera. You get the bog standard engine from the entry level 911. And apart from that, you don't get much else. Supposedly, it's lighter, but not really by much. 20 kilos. By the time you put some options on, that kind of starts to disappear. However, it's all about feel and emotion. This car is supposed to be an homage or hark back to an old 911 from the 70s, the 911T, which was all about touring, simplistic touring. They made the cars a bit lighter and just a bit more enjoyable to drive on the road. The GT3 is all about motorsport, it's all about track times. This car isn't really a track car, it is supposed to perform best out here on the open road. So you can spec things like racing bucket seats and I'm not really thinking what else. We're going to pull over in a second and go through all the different spec options, but realistically you could spec it to kind of be the equivalent of a 911 Carrera. So what is so special about this car? Because I do find it special. It's the fact that it's a no frills car. The GTS, which a lot of you were saying, why didn't I get, is kind of the best version of the 911. They tick every single box essentially. Whilst this basically unticks every box. Let's see if I can try and do a straight spinneroonie. It's got a great turning circle. But yes, it's just about the driving experience. It's hard to explain until you get in one. But there's a sort of a feel and emotion which is so important to me when I pick cars that somehow gets lost in the rest of the 911 range, even in the GTS. We're nearly, what, 100 horsepower down on the GTS in this car, but it really doesn't matter on a day like today on a road like this. Anyway, let me pull over and talk you through all the different spec options, how you can make this car kind of really quite wacky, and then you might start to understand where it sits in the, well, now the old 911 product range, because the 992's out any day now, isn't it? Anyway, let's pull over. By the way, if you're wondering why all the B-roll for this video is shot in the sort of beautiful sunshine and it's now pretty grey and overcast, that's because it's November here in the UK and sunshine is a very limited thing. But I did see that between the hours of about 7 and 9 we were expecting some sunshine, so I woke up early, filmed all the B-roll, and now I'm sitting down to finally talk to you, and of course it's clouded over and probably it's going to start raining, so a continuity fail. But anyway, we continue. I have here the very lovely spec and information document from Porsche on this car. Now a lot of the stuff is standard with the Carrera T, i.e. the no rear seats. That is a standard option. You actually have to choose to have the seats. It's all about saving weight. These door pulleys, these door handles, which I really love, they come standard as well. So I'm just going to point out the options on this car and how they reflect on the options on my car. Let's not forget, I didn't order my car from factory, I bought it as it's an ex-demo. Funny enough, Porsche Reading, which is Porsche HQ, it was their demo. So anyway, here we go. On this car, we have got the LED main headlights in black, including PDLS, which is the Porsche Dynamic Light System. Very nice, fairly unimportant. Park assist front and rear with the reversing camera. Again, just livability. Now here we go. First sort of Carrera T driving option, rear axle steering. Now this is the one option that I really wanted. I experienced the rear axle steering on the 991.2 GTS out in America and just thought it was great. It just makes this car a lot more nimble because these days 911s are big cars. I'm sorry, they are very big, wide cars, and when you get onto a tighter road, it just helps with making the car feel a bit more nimble. However, very few people spec the car with rear axle steering. A couple are online, social media cars that you'll know about that have it, but actually on the market, incredibly hard to find, especially with a PDK car, which mine is. So anyway, we're going to skip past that. I'll talk about it when we go back out onto the road. This car has the ceramic brakes. £6,000 for those. I think incredibly unnecessary in the T. I think if you're in a GT3, GT2, GT3 RS, etc., GT2 RS, it makes sense because firstly, track performance, secondly, you've got so much power and speed that you kind of need to stop. But in this car, it's not that quick, this car. We're at like, what, 360 horsepower? 370 horsepower. 0 to 60 is like 4.5? Yeah, 4.5. So it's not a lot of speed, and on the roads they feel a tiny bit grabby. The carbon ceramics. I don't have them. I have the steel brakes on my car, and I'm very happy with that. Also, because the cost of replacing these, £6,000. Cruise control, fine. Dimming mirrors, light design package, interior package, Carrera T. Very important option. If you don't have the racing bucket seats, which I again think are unnecessary in this car. Fundamentally, the bucket seats, whilst they look amazing, getting in and out of them, as I mentioned when I collected my car, is very hard to do. So they look brilliant, but they're impractical. So you want to have the comfort seats, in my mind, at least in the T. And then the Carrera T interior package is a special sort of pinstriping, and I think they call it Sport Tex material. Really like it. In this car we've got yellow, in my car it's silver, but win-win-win. And then pedals in aluminium, which I guess. One more thing I wanted to point out about T's in general before we head back out to the road. It all comes down to the glass, and that's not a joke, that's not a pun, like it literally is the glass, because the Carrera T takes the same lightweight window glass from the GT2 RS. This is kind of like one of the main areas for weight saving, but also for what makes the Carrera T different or special, because especially when you have no rear seats as well, you get so much more exhaust noise, engine noise, road noise, and when you're sitting in this car, it feels inherently more special. When you drive down the road, it's just this, you feel a bit more like in the zone. Now, one big mistake that people made unknowingly was that if you spec'd privacy glass from factory, you lost the lightweight glass, because this window is actually a sort of plastic glass composite. You can't heat it up or it will melt. So there's no way to apply a tint aftermarket or from factory. So when customers went in and went, oh, I want privacy glass, as many would on a 911, they weren't told, or they didn't know, that meant they wouldn't get that lightweight option. And as I say, without that, I think you are then driving a Carrera. So for me, it was super important that I had this lightweight glass. As soon as I found out that fact, I knew that was one thing that I really wanted, because it's kind of one of the parts that makes the T the T. Anyway, enough back pain from leaning over. Let's hit the road. Now, speaking of things that fundamentally make the T, you'd have to say this manual gearbox is probably one of them. However, when I revealed that I'd bought a PDK car, there weren't that many of you that sort of slated me or said, well, what's the point in that? I think the fact that I'm using this car to do 60, 50, 60, 70,000 miles next year kind of explains why I went PDK. I did also mention in the collection video that, you know, the car is going to be driven by other people, and I just feel like it's a easier and safer option if it's PDK. And from my brief time driving my own personal car, I quickly realised that it doesn't remove anything from how special this car is. It is very nice though to experience a manual one, because I don't remember the last time I drove a manual Porsche. It might have been a 2.7 RS down in Monaco, which would be mental. But anyway, let's get back to this particular car. So, as I say, whilst the manual is fantastic and it does create a more involving, raw, basic 911 experience, I don't think it's as fundamental as I first thought. Any other journalist, probably anyone else on social media, would tell you something different. They would say that without this manual this car is pointless, but I would disagree because I've chosen one with a PDK box. The thing that more of you asked, or more of you spoke about, was the fact I'd chosen a right-hand drive car, like this very Carrera T here. That's because I live in the UK, and I know next year I'm going to be doing a ton of mileage, and the majority of my mileage in countries where light left-hand drive is the norm. See, I'm just such a Carrera T guy, everything's lightweight. But yeah, most of the countries I'm going to, the cars will be left-hand drive and I'll be in a right-hand drive car. That does not faze me for 1 second. I've done loads of trips over the last few years driving right-hand drive cars in left-hand drive countries and driving left-hand drive cars in right-hand drive countries. You get used to it unbelievably quickly. It's only a bore or slash danger when you're on a sort of narrow, tight road and you want to overtake. That just means you just have to wait a bit longer. You just have to be patient. Yes, going in underground car parks can be a bore as well, but plenty of practice of doing that too. And the main two reasons that I chose a right-hand drive car is, firstly, it was easier to source and finance, given the fact that time was really quickly running out and I needed to find and buy a car. It was just simpler to get a right-hand drive UK car. But more importantly, I plan on keeping this car, not this car, I plan on keeping my car when I get back from Drive the World. And I live in the UK. And then it would be more annoying to have a left-hand drive in the UK than it would be to have a right-hand drive in some other countries temporarily next year. So I understand maybe some of your concerns, but it's really not a big deal. If you have driven in a country on the opposite side of the car or opposite side of the road, I think you would agree that it's not really a big deal. So I think that probably answers the majority of your questions. I'm just going to slow right down now because there's a horsey's coming. I've actually already seen these guys before, so we're both doing laps. But yeah, the majority of the questions I got were, why did you get right-hand drive? What options do you wish you could have had? And why did you get PDK? So I think I've ticked off pretty much all of those boxes or options now. If you have any other questions around my 911 Carrera T, let me know. Comment below. And I'm just so glad that Porsche UK gave me the opportunity to spend time in one of these cars, because it is just validating my choice more and more. This thing is so good to drive, and as you might have seen, I've been having so much fun hooning it around today. I've got it for a week, and as I say, plenty more videos to come as I sort of get my preparations together for next year, but also just experience this car a bit more. So give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed today's video, and make sure to subscribe for plenty more videos to come.